1 year ago on this weekend, Pope Francis wrapped up a week-long visit to Canada. In the Pope's own words at the time, it was a penitential pilgrimage focused on apologizing for the Catholic Church's role in Canada's residential school system. Cree Nation Grand Chief Mandy Gull-Masty joins us now to reflect on the visit 1 year later. Grand Chief Gull-Masty, thank you very much for joining us.
Hi, thank you.
So you were part of a delegation of Indigenous leaders who visited the Vatican, where the Pope delivered the initial apology. I believe you then attended at least two of the Pope's events in Alberta and Quebec, your home province. Since then, could you describe what's changed and whether there's been progress in addressing the issues that were raised with the Pope and the Roman Catholic Church?
Thank you. I was a representative of the province of Quebec. During the time this past year, we've seen the evolution of many activities. I think that the federal government has announced a special report from the special interlocutor. We saw the repudiation of the doctrine of discovery from the Vatican Church. We also know that there was access provided for research in some of the Oblate archives. There have been some small steps, significant response on the side of the church. I think myself personally, I'm still waiting to see more.
How do you think the apology from the Pope in this time has influenced the healing process for survivors and their communities?
I've had a variety of responses. Some residential school survivors telling me that this was something that they were looking for. The action of an apology delivered something for them. Some saying that they were not pleased, wanting more, not feeling that it was enough, and some not ready to speak about it yet.
You mentioned you're still waiting to see some more action. Among the calls that we heard from various communities were reparations, accountability for those who perpetrated abuse in those institutions, the return of artifacts from the Vatican, and acknowledgement by the Church of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people. I'm curious, are there any specific issues or concerns that you believe need to be prioritized by the Church in its efforts to address the ongoing effects of residential schools moving forward?
I think first and foremost for myself, seeking access to the archives, to any kind of records for surviving students and their family, having that kind of information for those children who didn't return home or their whereabouts are unknown is important. I think that this should be something that is hosted by the Vatican, that is funded by the Vatican, to have a formal committee set up for Indigenous nations to participate for themselves. Secondly, a return of land, a repatriation of those students who were buried in church facilities or on school grounds. In addition, I think there has to be some dialogue, a formal process set up for the return of artifacts that are held at the Vatican.
Speaking of your firsthand experience, how has your personal involvement in these events shaped your perspective on the potential for reconciliation between the Catholic Church and Indigenous communities?
For myself, going to the Vatican was a really challenging experience. It was very hard to hear the residential school survivors speak about what they endured, how their life was affected, how their further generations of families were affected. And then to come home and to try to work with my nation and try to have these really challenging dialogues is not something that you could do lightly. In my nation, one of the communities that had a Catholic school has begun the process of ground penetrating radar. They are investigating the school lands to see if there are remains. That is something really hard. You know, these are people, these are our family members, our friends, our relations, and for them to have this discussion, something that has been in the dark for so long, I can't imagine the impact on them. As a leader, trying to create that space, trying to support, it is something that is very challenging. Every nation across Canada is in a different place with that. In terms of seeing the evolution of the Pope's visit, you know, watching him coming to Alberta, seeing everything that happened there, watching him coming to Quebec City, that was something really hard, not just to see the impact on the Pope himself, but to see the impact that it had on Canadians and, you know, what that dialogue meant for them. What did this visit have in terms of an impact on Indigenous peoples, but also what kind of learning occurred for Canadians in experiencing this historic moment?
That is Cree Nation Grand Chief Mandy Gull-Masty. Grand Chief Gull-Masty, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
There is some support for survivors. A 24-hour crisis line is available for anyone experiencing pain or distress as a result of their residential school experience. You can call toll-free and speak in confidence at 1-800-721-0066.